In every game, there's bound to be a Pokemon you never used before, whether it's because they're trades or more trades. Like, they just don't stop, and it'd be the coolest Pokemon too. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I don't have a lot of friends nor people I know who play the game. So getting these Pokemon is just not gonna happen. And guess what? It's still not gonna happen. With that, today's the day where I use Pokemon I never used before in Platinum. Picking our starter Pokemon was super easy. I've used a Piplup and Chimchar before, so as you can imagine, we get a Turtwig that we named Otis. My first thoughts were nothing crazy. I mean, Ash had one, and I thought his Turtwig was pretty cool, but he also turns into a grass ground type later, and I've never used one before, so this will be interesting. With that, we go to Route 202 to catch ourselves a Bidoof, and no. He is not going to learn every HM under the sun. He's different. He's our new member and his name is Carlito. I think he has potential to be a great Pokemon. I mean, as long as its special attack is good, we should be alright. He is a jack of all trades. I mean, look at all these moves. There's Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball. I mean, we have options. So let's check Carlito's nature. I'm feeling lucky. Oh, special attack is down. Well, that's not good. Well, Carlito has Focus Punch, and on Route 203, we fight this blonde-haired kid named Barry, and I forgot to mention that he's our rival, so my bad. All they did was use Growl most of the time, so we just spam Tackle to win the fight. In Oreburgh City, we go to the gym to fight Rourke, and as you can imagine, it wasn't hard. Carlito did get unlucky when we got hit with a crit rock throw, but we bounced back fast and used Absorb on Geodude to knock him out. He sends out Onix and we use 2 absorbs to knock him out, but I also used 2 withdrawals because not only did we get hit with Screech, but his last Pokemon hits hard, so we gotta be a little careful. But then we learned Razor Leaf, so never mind. We one-shot Cranidos, winning the fight. And honestly, leveling up and learning Razor Leaf couldn't have been better timing because Otis is better physically. On Route 205, this little girl asks us for help because Team Galactic has her dad, so we go inside and run into Commander Mars and fight, and this is how it went. With Carlito, we use Rollout KOing Zubat after 3 turns, but also getting badly poisoned by Toxic. She sends out Per Ugly and they use Fake Out, cancelling our Rollout and using Scratch to knock us out. I send out Otis, but since we're slower and Per Ugly hits like a truck, we get KO'd by 3 scratches, losing the match. Alright, fair enough. They don't call Mars a run killer for nothing. With that, we level up a bit and Carlito evolves into a B-Barrel. And now she isn't gonna stand a chance. Let's try again. This time we use 3 tackles, knocking out Zubat, but we still get poisoned. She sends out Per Ugly, so I switch into Otis and get hit with Fake Out, but that was gonna happen regardless. We were able to land 2 Razor Leaves before going down to 2 scratches, but that's when Carlito swoops in and lands a Rock Smash to win the fight. Now that's what I'm talking about. Carlito is here to stay and prove why it's good. With that, the dude we saved tells us there's a Pokemon we can get on Friday, so let's catch it. Since it wasn't Friday, we had to change it to Friday, but it didn't work. So all I did was switch it to Thursday and have it at 11:58 and just wait 2 minutes for it to appear. Now the reason why I never used a Drifloon before was simply because I thought other Pokemon were cooler like Honchkrow or Staraptor. But let's be honest, a bird with a hat, you can't beat that. Anyways, I think this will be a fun Pokemon to have, and I don't have high expectations, but who am I kidding? Yes I do. We name her Davenport and let's check her nature, and my goodness, this should be a crime. Adamant nature on Drifloon is crazy. I gotta redo this. Hold on. Alright. We have one with a bold nature, so defense is up, but attack is down. Not what I wanted, but I'll live. Going to the next town, Otis evolved into Grotle, and they did my boy dirty. He is so ugly, it's not even funny. I'm definitely a hater. I mean, it's a solid Pokemon, but bad design. We finally make it to Eterna City, where we go straight to the gym and face Gardenia. When it was time to face her last Pokemon, Roserade, they did decent damage with Magical Leaf as we land Gust doing decent damage as well. The only problem being they were getting health back from Leech Seed, so when we use another Gust getting them to half health, they eat a berry and with Leech Seed they almost get back to full HP. They land a Magical Leaf and a Leech Seed to pretty much take us out, and we were only able to get Roserade back to half health. But we still got 2 Pokemon, so we should be okay. We were not okay. They used Grass Knot on Otis, which is a big problem because the heavier the Pokemon is, the more damage they do. So they were destroying Otis. And then Carlito is part water, so we just get one shot, getting absolutely destroyed. Yikes, let's try again. Yeah, we get slapped up again. Alright, she's forced my hand. I go to the level cap and try again. Before Turtwig went down, they set up a reflect to make it harder to knock out her next Pokemon. So when I used Gust on Cherim, we didn't do much and they set up a Leech Seed. So I switched into Otis and we pretty much had to wait until Reflect came off to do massive damage. It was a close call living on 6 HP, but we were able to take it down with Razor Leaf. Her last Pokemon is Roserade and she finished off Otis with a Magical Leaf. We send out Carlito not expecting much to happen, but we live a Grass Knot and land a massive headbutt doing about half. But she had a berry and heals, so it kinda seems like a waste. Next turn, Carlito goes down. We send out Davenport and use 2 Gusts to win the fight, and I can't lie, I feel like this was a letdown of a fight, especially because how easily we beat Roserade, and how bad Roserade rocked our socks off the first time. We go inside this building and it's filled with Team Galactic members, so we run past them and reach the top, where we fight Commander Jupiter, and this was surprising because with Carlito we almost soloed this whole fight, but we're just a little bit unlucky. We one-shot Zubat with Headbutt, and then we use a Hyper Fang and 2 Headbutts on Skuntank to leave them on red HP, but we get taken down by 3 Night Slashes. After that, we send out Otis to finish the job, winning the fight. With that, we head to Mount Coronet where we run into this blue-haired guy, and he's talking crazy. What did he say? I don't know, I wasn't paying attention. Anyways, on Route 208, we get our next encounter being Rosalia. Now the reason for not using one is because there were other Pokemon that I wanted to use at the time, and you only have 6 slots, so I just haven't gotten to it yet. We name him Bailey and move on to Hearthome City. And we go straight to the contest hall where we run into our mom and catch up. We also run into the next gym leader, Fantina, where she waits for us at her gym. So all I gotta say before we start is I probably should start planning my fights cause this was terrible. I send out Bailey and use Grass Whistle on Duskull to put her to sleep. We switch into Carlito and use Rollout to hopefully knock them out, and it backfired immediately because they wake up and use Will-O-Wisp to make Rollout do less damage, and they land a whole bunch of hits before we were able to knock them out. She sends out Miss Magius and uses Psybeam to knock out Carlito, and it only got worse from here. They use Confuse Ray to make us hit ourselves and then use Psybeam to do massive damage. This basically repeats and we get knocked out. They do the same thing to Otis and all I could do is watch it happen. I send out Davenport but we just get taken down by Shadow Ball. This was so one-sided, it's not even funny. It's just sad, really. 4 attempts later and we got this run. With Bailey, we did a stalling strat using Stun Spore, Leech Seed, and Giga Drain to take down Duskull very easily. She sends out Haunter and misses a Sucker Punch, and then we miss a Stun Spore. After that, we get put to sleep by Hypnosis and get hit twice with Shadow Claw doing massive damage. But we were able to wake up and land a Stun Spore and land 2 Giga Drains before going down to another Shadow Claw. I send out Carlito and the plan is stupid, but if it works, it could go crazy. I use Rollout and miss. It sucked, but it wasn't bad. Because Haunter missed as well and we do it again and this time we get confused. They heal and we hit ourselves. Now most people would stop there but I was determined. We go again and the luck was insane. Haunter couldn't move at all and even being confused we used 3 rollouts to knock them out. She sends out her last Pokemon, Miss Magius, and they use a Magical Leaf, but we ate that, snap out of confusion, and land another rollout doing massive damage, leaving Miss Magius on 1 HP. She eats a berry and knocks out Carlito. That was insanely close. We switch out to Otis and use a bite to win the match. And all I gotta say is Carlito is by far my favorite Pokemon, coming in clutch in so many fights. We leave Hearthome City where we run into Barry again and he wants to fight. So we do. And this was the funniest fight because with Carlito, we used Rollout to one-shot his whole team, no problem. I know Carlito was gonna shine in some moments, but it's definitely becoming my #1 guy. On Route 209, we can get our next encounter being Chansey. The main reason for not using one is very simple. Its stats are horrendous. I mean, look at it. Base attack is 5. Special attack is 35. Like, it's not gonna do much damage at all. We name her Natalia, and that's when I realized that Blissey is a Gen 2 Pokemon. I thought it came out in Diamond and Pearl. That's crazy. Going through Route 210, Davenport took down so many trainers that it finally evolved into Drifblim. I will say it still looks pretty ugly, but I can't deny it's been a good Pokemon to have. In Veilstone City, we can face the next gym leader Maylene, and all I gotta say is we got outplayed. Before Meditite went down, they used Rock Tomb, lowering our speed. Her next Pokemon is Machoke, and they use another Rock Tomb, lowering our speed again, causing them to go first next turn and knock us out with another Rock Tomb. And since that was our only Pokemon I was planning to use against Maylene, things went bad fast, as I didn't really know what to do next, costing us the match. And that's what I get for thinking we can take down the whole gym with one Pokemon, because Lucario was able to wipe out the rest of my team no problem. But I don't think we're gonna struggle, and I'm feeling pretty good about this gym, so let's try again. With Davenport, we learn a new move being Ominous Wind, and with that we one-shot Meditite. She sends out Machoke and we use 2 Gusts to knock it out, but we did get hit with 1 Rock Tomb, lowering our speed. She sends out Lucario and I don't have a good move to take it down, so we use Gust and Ominous Wind before going down to a Metal Claw. We didn't do much damage until Davenport's ability came into effect, using Aftermath doing a good chunk of damage. So I send out Carlito, and knowing we can live a Drain Punch, we land a Yawn before going down to a Force Palm. Now that Lucario is asleep, we send out Bailey and use Leech Seed and Giga Drain to stall out Lucario, to eventually knock him out, winning the fight. Now that's what I'm talking about. I wasn't sure how Bailey was gonna do during this run, but you gotta love a good staller. After the match, we run into Lucas, who tells us that he got robbed, and honestly, they probably took it because his hat is the worst hat in Pokemon history, right next to the dude in Sword and Shield. Anyways, we get his stuff back where Looker comes and talks to us, and we go inside Team Galactic's warehouse where it's locked, so we'll come back here later. And the only reason why I mentioned this was because I wanted to talk trash about this dude's hat. I'm sorry, it's such a bad hat. Anyways, we go to the next town being Pastoria City, where we go straight to the gym, but before we go inside, Barry rudely interrupts us and challenges us to a battle. But we absolutely mop the floor again, and Otis evolved into a Torterra. And finally, he looks so cool now. He may be slow, but man, he packs a punch. With that, we face Crasher Wake, and this is how it went. They use Waterfall, causing me to flinch, so next turn they do it again but didn't get as lucky, and we land a Toxic before going down to a Bite. I send out Carlito and we use 2 rollouts, and with a bit of poison, Gyarados goes down. He sends out his next Pokemon Floatzel and uses Aqua Jet to KO. So I send out Otis and get hit with a super effective Ice Fang that almost took us out, but we live with 23 HP and land a Razor Leaf to one-shot Floatzel. He sends out his last Pokemon Quagsire, and we're somehow faster, landing another Razor Leaf to one-shot, winning the fight. And I'm just wondering, how slow is Quagsire, because Otis is very slow. Anyways, Otis is such a tank, and I don't know how he lives some of these moves. I swear, when I think he's gonna go down, he doesn't. After that, with Barry and Crasher Wake, we find out there's a Galactic team member wandering around town. And as we look for him, he bombs the Safari Zone. I knew I wasn't paying attention to the story, but that's crazy. We chased after him, and after a while, we catch up to him and beat him up. But for some reason, we let him go. Not too long after, we run into Cynthia, and she tells us if we can deliver something to her grandma in Celestic Town. On Route 210, we help these Psyducks and run into some trainers that slapped up my team so hard, I wiped multiple times. It was insane. I knew my team wasn't perfect, and I was really weak to certain types, but that's just insane. We eventually get to Celestic Town, where we stop this grunt from blowing up the town. We finally give this package to Cynthia's grandma, and she tells us to go inside the ruins, where she gives us a history lesson. And as I was dozing off, the blue-haired guy is back, and this time he's looking for a fight. It turns out he's the boss of Team Galactic, and what a boss he was, because this little bird with a hat was an absolute demon. He uses 2 Feint attacks to knock out Davenport. He uses Drill Peck on Otis and Bailey to knock them out. and then one-shots Natalia with Feint Attack. How crazy is that? We tried again, but the same thing happens, so there's only one thing to do, and it's time to grind. So we finally evolve Natalia into Blissey, and we teach her Shockwave, and we try again. With Otis, we get hit by Ice Punch that almost knocked us out, but with 2 Earthquakes, we KO Sneasel. He sends out Golbat and knocks out Otis with an Air Cutter, so we send out Davenport and use Fly and 2 Ominous Winds to knock him out. He sends out his last Pokemon, Murkrow, and finishes off Davenport, so we send out Natalia and they go first using Drill Peck, doing massive damage. Mind you, Natalia has 239 HP down to 74. She literally has like no defense. We land a Shockwave, but it wasn't enough and we ended up triggering a Berry. Next turn, we get knocked out by another Drill Peck. I send out Carlito and we get hit with Drill Peck again, but it didn't do as much and we land a Headbutt, KOing Murkrow, winning the fight. All I gotta say is I don't know if I like Honchkrow anymore. This thing's a monster. With that, we go to Canalave City, fight Barry again, he loses badly again, and then we head to the gym to face Byron. And how funny this was, because with Otis, we one-shot Magneton, 2-shot Steelix, and one-shot Bastiodon with Earthquake. Otis was not playing around. So now we got some story to go through, and we're gonna speedrun this. Out of nowhere, we hear a big boom near a lake, so we gotta go to 3 lakes to find out what happened. So we go to Lake Valor and Lake Verity to fight off Team Galactic, where we face Saturn and Mars. And even after we won, they still caught the legendary Pokemon that were at the lakes. So now we have to go to the 3rd one, but we haven't been there yet, so let's get there. We go through Mount Coronet, barely get past the fog, travel across a snowstorm, and make it to a city called Snowpoint, where we have to face the gym first, but I had a problem. We were getting slapped up by the gym trainer, so I think it's time to add a new member to the team, being Toxicroak. And the main reason for not using one is just I haven't gotten to it yet. Admittedly, I only ever played this game twice, so I just never got around to it. But Brock had one, so I'm very excited to use one. Hopefully it makes this gym a bit easier and we name her Dragonov. With that, let's fight Candace. Dragonov uses Brick Break to knock out Sneasel. She sends out Piloswine and we use another Brick Break, leaving them on red HP. So close to knocking them out. But we get hit with Earthquake to knock us out. I send out Carlito and we use 2 Surfs to knock out Piloswine. Her next Pokemon is Abomasnow and absolutely wrecks Carlito with a Wood Hammer. But they take some damage from recoil, leaving them at half health. I send out Natalia, but we just get whacked by Wood Hammer again, one-shotting us. But it also takes recoil again, knocking itself out. She sends out her last Pokemon, Frostlass, while I send out Otis. We get one shot with Blizzard, and how unlucky. I send out Davenport and the same thing happens and they use Blizzard. But we somehow live with 12 HP and using Ominous Wind, we one-shot Frostlass, winning the fight. Wow, even with Dragonov, this was a challenging gym and everyone did well, but I do have a problem. I feel like no matter which Pokemon comes out, they always use a physical move on Natalia and we get one shot every time. I don't know if it's just bad luck or I'm using her wrong, but I am struggling to use Natalia. Let's move on. We go to Lake Acuity where we find Barry talking to Jupiter and she's talking mad trash because Barry lost. She leaves and it turns out we should probably head to Team Galactic's HQ, so we go inside and find Cyrus talking to his crew, and once it's over we find Cyrus in a room where we fight him again. And of course, Honchkrow was an absolute demon to my team, knocking out Dragonov, Carlito, Otis, and Bailey in that order, so we wipe. Now, I didn't have Natalia at the time because I needed a Pokemon for an HM earlier, and that made me think, yeah, I need to change a team member because whether it's a regular trainer or someone important, if we had a bad matchup, our whole team would get wiped. So I look at the list of Pokemon that I can use and I choose Girafarig. So the reason why I never used one before was, how should I say this, it's just one of those Pokemon I just don't like. I mean, I'm sure everyone has that one Pokemon where they look at it and are like, yeah, I'm never using that thing. But all the Pokemon that I can still use were all the same types that I already had, and it was not going to help out, except Girafarig. Being part Psychic was going to be a huge help, and it can also learn Electric type moves. This was my best option, and I hope this works out or this is going to be rough. I was also tired of losing and didn't have the brain power to come up with a name, so we just left it as Girafarig. So you might be wondering who we're gonna switch out, and Natalia can go straight to the box to never be seen again. I didn't really use her to begin with, and when I did, she always got one-shotted, so the decision wasn't hard. Now that we have a new member, let's try again. Honchcrow comes out and we ain't playing no games. Thunder. And what do you mean? You're telling me that it's still alive? How was that even possible? It also had a berry, and while you can't say Davenport ain't tried, because even with Aftermath, we still didn't kill. But no worries, I spent my whole life savings on Thunderbolt, and that did the job. I'd say money well spent. With that, we beat Cyrus, but that ain't stopping him from doing bad stuff, and he heads to Mount Coronet, and before we follow him, we free the 3 legendary Pokemon, and now we can follow him. We make it a Sky Pillar, and before we can reach him, Barry pops up, and we have a double battle against Jupiter and Mars. Let's do this. Psych, I'm not gonna talk about it. We did lose once though. I blame it on Barry. He sent out a Munchlax to an important fight. Like, out of all the Pokemon you had, you thought Munchlax was the best choice. After the fight, Cyrus casts a spell of some sort and summons 2 legendary Pokemon, and out of nowhere we have a hole in the ground. It turns out if we don't stop it, the world will be destroyed, so we go inside and search for a YouTube video, because ain't no way I'm doing this by myself. I'm too dumb for that. After about 9 minutes, we find Cyrus and battle him for the last time. I send out Carlito and use Superpower to one-shot Houndoom. His next Pokemon is Gyarados, so we sack B-Barrel and then send out Davenport to use Thunder. I thought we knocked him out, but then they used Ice Fang and I was shocked that Thunder didn't kill. Next turn, they heal while we use Shadow Ball, and then after that, we use Thunder, but we miss. But it works out because Gyarados misses as well, giving us a chance to use Thunder again, and we land it. His next Pokemon is Weavile, so we switch to Dragunov and use Brick Break to one-shot him. His next Pokemon is Honchcrow, and we use Poison Jab before going down to Night Slash. So I send out Girafarig and use Thunderbolt to KO him. He sends out his last Pokemon, Crobat, and we use Psychic to one-shot him, winning the fight, and he finally gives up and leaves. That's when Cynthia tells us that we should catch Garantina, so we throw a Master Ball, catch it, and then head back to Earth. Now that we're done with the story, it's time to go to Sunyshore City to face the last gym leader, Volkner. Jolteon goes first using Thunder Wave, but we had a berry to cure it and land a dig. Next turn, they use Charge Beam while we use another dig to knock him out. His next Pokemon is Electivire, and we were able to land 1 dig before going down to a quick attack. I sent out Otis and get hit by Fire Punch, but it didn't do much, and we land an Earthquake to finish him off. His next Pokemon is Luxray, and we switch into Carlito and get hit by an Ice Fang. Next turn, I land Strength before going down to a Thunder Fang. I sent out Girafarig and use Psychic, but it wasn't enough, and we get one shot with Crunch. I sent out Davenport and they heal while we use Shadow Ball that also lowered their special defense, so we do it again to knock him out. He sends out Raichu, so we switch into Otis and Raichu did nothing. Next turn, they use Signal Beam, but it didn't do much, and we land Earthquake to one-shot him, winning the fight. Now that we have all 8 badges, we go to the Pokemon League and finally evolve Bailey into a Rose Raid. And now we can face the Elite Four where Barry interrupts us again, so we have no choice but to put him in his place because we absolutely mopped the floor with him since we had a counter to all of his Pokemon. With that, let's face our first Elite Four member, Aaron, and it was not how I expected it to go. Scissor was more bulky than I thought and lived 2 Brick Breaks, and they used 2 Iron Heads to knock out Dragunov. They heal and we have the same problem again. We tried using Shadow Ball to try and get his special defense to go down, but it never happened, and with 2 Night Slashes we went down. And the only reason they went down was because of Aftermath. When Vespiquen came out, we used Rock Tomb with Otis, but it wasn't strong enough and we get taken out by Attack Order. And when Heracross came out, we were so close to winning the fight using Psychic, but they live on red HP, and they land a fat Mega Horn, wiping our whole team. He's crazy when you don't have a fire type, and they honestly hit hard and has some good counters to my team. Let's try again. With Davenport, we one-shot Yanmega with Thunder. His next Pokemon is Drapion, so we switch into Bailey to sack so that we can safely switch into Otis. We get hit with Ice Fang, but we live it and land an Earthquake, but it wasn't enough, so we switch into Dragunov and take a hit from Ice Fang. Next turn, we're slower and we get hit with Aerial Ace, but we eat those and land a dig to knock him out. He sends out Scissor and we were able to land a Brick Break before going down to a quick attack. I send out Carlito and we use a waterfall, causing them to heal next turn, which leads us to use 3 waterfalls to knock him out, and we were only able to do that because we got a flinch on one of those turns. He sends out Heracross and knocks out Carlito with Stone Edge, so we send out Girafarig and maybe this time we can knock it out, but nope, we get taken down by a Megahorn again. We send out Davenport and with Fly we one-shot it, and his last Pokemon is Vespiquen and we land 2 Thunders to win the match. That was intense. One thing I want to mention is that there's times after a fight I don't add a comment on the Pokemon I used, and that's because they all did good, but no one stood out. But that's also not a bad thing, that just means everyone played their part perfectly. Our next Elite Four member is Bertha, and Gliscor was putting up a fight. I had Bailey out first, so when I went to switch to Carlito, we get hit with Earthquake. It turns out we're slower and we get hit with another Earthquake, living on 2 HP, and we land a Waterfall doing about half before going down to an Ice Fang. After that, we didn't have a good Pokemon to face it, so we switch into Davenport and spam Shadow Ball to hopefully lower its special defense. So we can just keep spamming Shadow Ball to win the fight, and we were able to get them to red HP, but Gliscor had Ice Fang, eventually knocking us out. But of course, Aftermath takes effect, finally knocking it out. And now our biggest threat is gone. With Bailey, we use Giga Drain on Wishcash, Petal Dance on Golem and Rhyperior, and 2 Giga Drains on Hippowdon, winning the fight. And Bailey finally has some time to shine, pretty much taking out her whole team, but we gotta shout out Davenport, that Aftermath ability is super good. We face our 3rd Elite Four member Flint, and this was rough. We got outplayed when we used Dig on Rapidash and they just used Bounce, so we missed the Dig and they knock us out right after. When Infernape came out, not only was this thing super fast, it hit hard. So even when we used Fly with Davenport, we just get destroyed by Flare Blitz. We were so close at the end because Flare Blitz has recoil and Aftermath took effect, but it wasn't enough and Infernape took down another Pokemon before going down. Flareon just chooses straight violence. He comes out and immediately uses Overheat to one-shot us, and Magmortar had Thunderbolt to knock out Carlito very easily. Our last Pokemon was Bailey, and I'm sure you know how that went. After 5 more attempts, this happened. His first Pokemon was Houndoom, and with Brick Break, we one-shot him. His next Pokemon is Rapidash, and they use Sunny Day while we use Sludge Bomb. Next turn, they use Flare Blitz, and I thought Dragunov was going down, but we live with 6 HP, and the recoil knocked him out. He sends out Infernape, and he takes down Dragunov with Mach Punch. So wanting the sun to go down, I send out Girafarig, and we get knocked out with Flare Blitz. Our next Pokemon is Davenport, and we take a nasty Flare Blitz while we finally land Fly, and as she was in the sky, the sun went down and we knock him out. His next Pokemon is Magmortar, and we were able to land a Shadow Ball before going down to a Thunderbolt. Not having much options, we send out Carlito and we somehow live a Thunderbolt, landing a Waterfall to knock him out, and this was just insane. He gets burned and we go down as well. His last Pokemon is Flareon, and we use Toxic before going down to Overheat. That also harshly lowers his special attack that did just enough, so when we send out Otis, we outlive Overheat and land a massive Earthquake to knock him out, winning the match. And this by far was the hardest fight yet, and if Carlito had went down to Thunderbolt, I'm sure this fight would have ended differently. With that, we face our last Elite Four member, Lucian, and all you need to know is that depending on what Mr. Mime did, this would either mean we win this fight or lose this fight. If Mr. Mime uses Reflect, we pretty much lose. Once we take it down after losing a Pokemon or two, he sends out Espeon, and not only is this Pokemon super effective against a lot of our Pokemon, it's super fast, hits hard, and the worst part, tanky from the Reflect Mr. Mime setup. So it easily messed up my team. It took me about 6 attempts, but with some luck, we got this run. With Otis, Quick Claw activates, letting us go first, landing 1 crunch to knock out Mr. Mime. He sends out Espeon, and we outlive a Signal Beam to land 3 crunches, taking him down, also making him use a full restore. His next Pokemon is Bronzong, and they use Earthquake to finish off Otis. With Dragunov, we tried using Dark Pulse, but it didn't do much and we get taken out by Psychic. So we send out Davenport, and with 2 Shadow Balls, we knock him out. but we did get hit with Psychic. His next Pokemon is Gallade, and we land a Shadow Ball doing massive damage, but they eat a berry and also use Stone Edge to knock us out. I sent out Girafarig, and luck was on our side because after we use Shadow Ball, not only do we lower their special defense, but they also miss a Stone Edge. So with 2 more Shadow Balls, we KO, and he sends out his last Pokemon, Alakazam. And they go first, missing a Focus Blast, and we land a massive Shadow Ball. Next turn, they miss again, and we land another Shadow Ball to win the fight. And as you can see, I was super hyped. Otis going first and Alakazam missing twice was everything. Now that we have beaten the Elite Four, it's time to fight the hardest champion of them all, Cynthia. And man, 2 of her Pokemon were straight monsters to our team. We would get absolutely slammed by Milotic and Garchomp. Not only did Milotic have Ice Beam doing massive damage against our team, but Miracle was insane. If we did Thunder or Giga Drain, the damage would double and we would get knocked out instantly. By the time we beat Milotic, half of our team would be gone, so when Garchomp appears, not only was it faster than my whole team, but Dragon Rush would take out the rest of the team no problem. We tried about 8 more times, but the result was the same. Garchomp would sweep our team, so we had no choice but to give our Pokemon new moves and EV train all of our Pokemon, and we try again, and this is how it went. With Spiritomb, we did a stalling strat that sort of worked. Spiritomb did just a little bit too much to set up a Leech Seed, so the best we could do is use Toxic and spam Giga Drain until we knock each other out. She sends out Togekiss and we use 2 Thunders with Davenport to knock them out. Her next Pokemon is Milotic and we were able to land a Thunder before going down to an Ice Beam. So we send out Girafarig and use Thunderbolt to finish them off. Her next Pokemon is Lucario and we land a Thunderbolt before going down to an Extreme Speed. We send out Dragunov and get hit with another Extreme Speed before we knock them out with Earthquake. She finally sends out Garchomp and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't sure what to do, but switching out would be a bad idea. Knowing that we might be knocked out, we use Focus Blast to do as much damage as possible, and we do decent damage doing about half, which is perfect. But it only gets better as they miss a Dragon Rush, giving us another chance to hit them again. We use Sludge Bomb so we can hopefully get the poison, and we do, and luck strikes again because they miss another Dragon Rush, so it must be a sign. We use Focus Blast to knock out Garchomp, and that was absolutely insane. Who knew Dragunov was gonna be the one to take down Garchomp? She sends out her last Pokemon, Roserade, and with Otis, we use Earthquake, knocking them out, winning the fight, and with some insane luck, we become champions. If you like this video and want to see more stuff like this, like the video and subscribe as it really helps out the channel. And until next time, have a great day. See ya.